Okay. Okay. I guess lunch is going to have to wait here because we're recording another Harness Players podcast episode. I am Ray Cotolo. Okay, that's good. Things seem in order right now. But usually when I do these, I have someone else here because I could be every single other co-host of a show. I have no problem with that. The costume changes might be a little bit of a hassle with the running back and forth, but I mean, most of the time when I do this, there's usually a guy named Mike Pribozie on here with me, and instead it's just me. Oh no, okay. Everything seems kind of in order here now. That is you, right, Mike? You're not just in my head, right? I'm seeing you right now.
It is
you. Yeah. You is in my eyes. At least I think. Right?
You don't have to look too far to find me. I'm right here. Plus, that's if you look all across the In the Money Network, I show up a lot of different places. I look at a lot of races, and we're excited for another Harness Players podcast for Fraser because we've been giving out plenty of winners, and the late pick for Friday night is another solid sequence. So let's get at it.
Yeah, certainly. You'll want to make sure you subscribe to the In the Money Media Network because, I told PTF, don't hinge all of your happiness on that subscriber number. There are bigger things that matter, like your family, your kids. And he keeps saying to me, I need that number to keep climbing, especially towards 12.5. We're already over 11,000 subscribers here. And that's because of all the different kinds of racing content. You've been doing a lot of thoroughbred stuff, of course, Kentucky Derby down the road. So if that's of your interest, of course, subscribe to keep an eye on that, but also for more harness content because we also have coming up another episode of the Harness Players Pod looking at the Borgata series as the year goes on. We're going to have more Harness Players podcast episodes looking at all the other stakes action happening across North America, and including, of course, simple racing like Fraser Downs up in Surrey, British Columbia. We've been looking at their pick four since the meet started. If we want to go longer than that, it's been many months. We've been following the racing at Fraser's, looking specifically at their Friday night late pick four sequences. So this one, we're going to talk about the April 18th sequence that starts in race number 6. But first and foremost, Mike, I have to make a couple of concessions, and I have to, take a couple of laurels too, because even though last week I went with my all cold pick 4, I wasn't off the ball in some places, but of course, at the end of the day, a losing ticket's a losing ticket. I concede West Coast Beach was a lot better than It'll Be Fine. Yeah, you were right to sniff out that maybe that horse needed an extra mile, and Dave Hudon taking the pocket, I think really, that set up, that told the whole story of where that horse was at. Dylan James, of course, I was a doubter in as well, and he was an easy winner in the finale. But I mean, for all single ticket, Mike, I had 2 seconds and a win. That's not bad.
Typically doesn't pay on that. However, especially if you're looking for winners, I don't think anybody could find Major Winker that paid. It was 20-1. Probably should have been 200-1 off those lines. He found a way to win and blow up that late pick 4. But that was one of the highest pools of the meet so far. I think it was closer to 12,000 in that. So maybe we had a little bit to do with that, and the fact that they had full fields probably had a lot more to do with it. Full fields this week, except for the first leg, and very competitive.
Yeah, of course, the meet started in February. We're now in about mid-April, so a lot of these horses are starting to just kind of hit their groove. The racing's starting to intensify as a result. We aren't really given too many favors, though, Mike, in this sequence starting in race number 6, because right off the bat, we are again facing Dylan James towards the center of the gate as the 9-5 morning line favorite. I'm kind of torn in some directions, though, because on one hand, I thought he looked really good in winning last time to some degree, never really looked like a loser, but also it really did just seem like he was able to keep chugging when shots fired, very clearly was tired.
Yeah, just real quick, only a couple more weeks here to do these Fraser shows. So we got this week, next week, and then a Derby week. So just a little bit of housekeeping there. I liked Dylan James last week. You didn't. I thought the driver switch would be imperative. I thought that the barn switch made a huge difference for this one. And I think that he's the one to beat in here. Now, there's a couple others that might have a chance. The 2 Billy Buxton, I think, has a chance. Dropped last time, had an outside post. Now gets Kelly O'Hort to drive, who drove this one to 2 straight wins back in March and April. And I do think the better post, the speed, could make a huge difference here to get the jump on Dylan James. I think it's those two. It's Billy Buxton and Dylan James. The rest are going to have a tough time here. Shots Fired's a nice horse, and he is capable, but this post and the way this race shapes, I'm not sure he's going to get the trip he wants. Would he surprise me? No, but I have to shrink somewhere 2-4 for me in this spot.
Do you really think that Billy Buxton is the fastest off the gate in here, though? I mean, look at the races that he has controlled or at least been close to. They're all tempos that he's not going to get inside of a race like this unless everyone else falls asleep.
Well, but I mean, he's inside. The 3's going to sit. The 6 is going to sit. I mean, I think Shots Fired could blast here, but he doesn't necessarily like the front either. If you look at his lines, he typically races much better from off the pace. So I don't know. I mean, I guess he could blast off here. Maybe Bay Street Buddy tries to go from an inside post. That is possible, but I do think the 2 will be forward.
Yeah, I don't really know how to assess Bay Street Buddy. He was one of my singles in the sequence last week, and looking back at that race, he didn't look like he was really in rhythm. He wasn't really traveling in any type of provocative way.
You singled him when he had no chance.
I wouldn't say he had no chance. I thought he was a really solid winner back on his first.
Do you
start
like him now?
That's why I'm torn, because I was impressed with how Dylan James looked, but again, he was closing into a 29-second final quarter, and Campbell was still having to kind of fight with him and implore him to get by Shots Fired. So it's hard for me to say that Dylan James really is a slam dunk here, but I don't know, the race could play into his favor because I'm not really that sold on a lot of the speed either. Shots Fired draws the exact post where he's probably going to have to be aggressive. And if he is aggressive, we've seen that a lot of times that takes the wind out of his sails towards the end of the mile, which favors Dylan James. I don't believe Billy Buxton can carve the type of tempo he needs to steal the race, especially against a group like this. I think he's just kind of a cheaper horse than everyone else, but you're going to get a price on him because of that, and he can still prove himself against a group like this. But also that leaves room for Bay Street Buddy to potentially have some redemption too. It's tough. I feel like Dylan James is an A, and then if I were to play other tickets, I would go B's with maybe 1-2-5 trying to beat Dylan James out, because I don't really have a clear direction of where I would want to go in this, but I don't think Dylan James is the unbeatable favorite inside of this race. Okay, and you agree with that?
I agree.
That's on record.
I'm with race 1. I don't know how much more I can add to that.
The second leg is race number 7. You want to talk about winners that never looked in doubt? Watch the replay on Loaded Dragon. I mean, going past the half, Campbell was trying to wrangle him into his little pocket at the pylons, and the horse just wanted to chug forward, and he kept fighting. For any thoroughbred viewers who might be watching, if you watch the stretch drive on Loaded Dragon, Mike, that was almost like the harness racing equivalent of a re-break. You could see he was really wanting to just keep chugging once he got the lead.
Yeah, this barn is going exceptionally well, and he faces the same horses here. There's 1-9 versus those horses, and he's back in again against them. How do you want to beat him? Who's going to beat him? What kind of trip is going to beat him? I don't really see anything that really makes me all that excited. You could maybe look at the Juan Mock Steady, who gets a better post now, gets actually on the gate, raced pretty well last time, but that was a different bunch. And that was, this horse missed a week also. So that would be one that maybe could challenge early. I don't know that I would waste a lot of equity trying to beat Loaded Dragon here. He's just very good right now. I would maybe single him and move on. If you do beat him, though, this pick 4 is going to blow up. So do you have any other ideas, anything creative?
And I mean, no, I watched that race, and even if I envision Mock Steady getting his picture perfect thievery on the lead, I think Loaded Dragon still has more power to him. And even if he goes first up, he's probably just going to blow by and win. Because Mock Steady also, he's kind of short at the end of the miles anyway, but no one else really, not even Pure Form Mr. Toffee, who every now and again is, I know your long shot chance.
He was better last week, though. I didn't mind him. He's 30-1, finished third against this horse. So he was okay.
Ground. He lost ground inside of that effort, though. That doesn't really leave me super excited. We know Waiting on a River. I mean, he wants lower classes, but he's still dependent on how things unfold. But he's going to follow speed. He's going to follow Mock Steady out of the wings of the gate. He's not really been one to ever close a whole lot of ground. And so it's all these other horses are B grade to Loaded Dragon's A grade. And it's, to your point, if he loses, opens the door to massive pick 4 payoffs. But the reason that is because it's incredibly hard to imagine a scenario where he loses beyond breaking stride, somehow turning for home, and they're 5 wide, and Campbell put himself in a situation where he's seesawing behind them, which again, sure is possible, but it's not likely. So I can't get creative here against Loaded Dragon. I forfeit to him. I succumb to thee. I submit to you. Just please spare me so I can get to the third leg, which is race number 8. And it's the feature of the card at Fraser Downs. The open pace, $10,000 purse. The main thing I wonder here, Mike, you've been on the West Coast beach for so many weeks now, but he has probably the toughest draw he's faced to date. And in the past, when he's gotten all the way out here, it stung him enough that he can't get the job done. Are you still a believer from post 7?
I don't think so. I do think that this could be tougher now, especially It'll Be Fine comes back after missing, that he missed a week and then showed up in the last 2 and was beating those, but was closer last time. He does have a post edge, probably will be forward here. West Coast Beach is going to fire and maybe could be good enough to last. I think that this could set up for something else, though. The 2 raced much better last time. Campbell sticks here, has an inside post. Again, the Canic Barn has just been moving horses up. And I think that this horse maybe needed a week to get adjusted to this class, got the driver switch, got closer last time. Now you get a better post. It's going to be third choice in the wagering, most likely. So that would be the horse that I would focus on, would be number 2, Tizzalaxin, whatever the horse's name is.
Zillikatzen.
Zillikatzen, that's it. I need to hear you say it to get it right in my mind.
And as Tekken warrior or a Moroccan warrior, I forget what specific tribe the name comes from. You're not at all concerned, though, how much he hung in the stretch, though, against West Coast Beach last time?
No, I mean, so I just do think that this horse gets off the rail. It's a connections play, third time in the level now, and it's just capable. I mean, is he better? Maybe not necessarily, but you got the 7, got an outside post. So that makes a difference here. That horse could get stung a little harder and the race could shape a little better. I trust Campbell to get the right trip in the race, and you're going to get paid a better mutual if you use the 2. So there's all those things equal. I think a horse that I want to lean on.
I alluded to this earlier. It'll Be Fine. The main question for him last time out was, did he, need that start after missing a week? You were saying, no, he should have been here every single week if nothing was wrong. I don't want anything to do with that piece of crap. And I said, really, Mike? There's some harsh words.
I didn't say that, but I wasn't wrong.
No, and that's the thing. But now we're at a point where Dave methodically decided, I'm going to sit the pocket to West Coast Beach, take my chances in the stretch. He was never going by.
Right.
If you go and watch the race, Howard had that win measured pretty much from the 3/4 pole. And it wasn't even like he got a big breather doing so. But since he followed that helmet, I do have to wonder, 2 starts down, 3rd start back, maybe the engines are a little warmer and he can probably do a bit more inside the race, or can work a trip that favors him, since there's going to be that likely speed from the outside with West Coast Beach. So I would probably lean on It'll Be Fine being an A again, but I got 2 B's for you. I got 2 B's, and I'm not saying to be or not to be. That's not the question here. The question is, can Outlaw See My Shadow work something here? Because I thought that there were 2 interesting performers from last week's Open. Him being one, because he was wanting to go to the half, and then he waited to flush Zilla Katzen. So Jacoby had to start, stop, start again. And it did take the horse a little bit of time to chug the engines, but he kept showing interest in the lane, was actually gaining while It'll Be Fine was kind of even and Zilla Katzen was hanging. So sure, like he lost by 2 lengths, but he was at least trying to get back into it after losing that ground around the turn. So, maybe if it goes really fast, we've seen him upset in the past. Maybe he might be able to work into an interesting toe. Buddyville, though, I don't know what to make of that race because if you watch the replay, Knight is the first one to move off the half, and he's flying. And then Jacoby registers that he's coming up and just comes right in front of him, and Knight has to take up. And then Buddyville doesn't get interested in the race from there. And so I wonder what happens this time around if maybe Knight has a better opportunity to use that horse's momentum without it getting stifled in some capacity. Because it really looked like he was going to put in an eye-catching move up the backstretch and make up more ground than he did. But I don't know if that measures to a win against a class like this. I think he still has a lot of room to improve before he can face the tougher horses over this track, but he gets the right post. He's going to be a good price. And again, like these are the types of things when we watch these horses from week to week, you want to watch for these type of things because that could help inform you down the road that, maybe they're going to be ripe for an upset at some point, but we know It'll Be Fine still good. We know he still has some authority over this group, which is why I have him as an A. But I'm with you. Like I'm not sold that one horse is like really much better than the rest of them at this very point in time.
One race every week, it seems, has been blowing up. This could be the race that blows up here because of circumstances. I do think It'll Be Fine as maybe regressed just a little bit. And that could open the door for some others. West Coast Beach has to deal with that outside post, and the pace scenario could be far different here. So I do think this is the race that you want to spread out a little bit and take some prices, because if you're able to kind of navigate that race that blows up every week in these Fraser pick fours, then you have been getting paid. I think that this is the race that, you want to take some shots and could be the race that blows up, especially given some of the other favorites look very strong in these other races. So this would be the race that I think that I agree with you. I would probably use a little 1, use some 2, use some 5. Those are the horses that I would want here.
The final leg of the pick 4 is race number 9. You're saying the favorites seem strong, and you've been tooting the horn of the Canic stable. Though I was on record here last week saying Airline Pilot, no good. I don't like him from this spot. And again, I'm right. Like I can't help but be right. But this is a weird spot this time around because more likely than not, Mike, we're gonna have Nothing in Moderation want to cut the fractions, and he never finishes the race. And so you have to wonder, even if Airline Pilot gets into that first over anchor position, which caused him to hang in the stretch, might he still just be good enough to crawl by?
Yeah, I don't know about him in here. I don't. Nothing in Moderation gets a drop, and I do think that will matter. This horse is going to need to get caught. I don't mind Major Winker also back. If you can win that race off those lines last time. Now I know he got a trip in the race, but he's got to be tighter here, right? I mean, and he's capable. If you look last year, he has 4 wins. He's in the money all the time. I mean, he's a consistent type. So to come off the bench and get that win like that is fantastic, I think. And against these kind of horses, I'm interested again. So I would be interested in the 4, the 6. I'd probably be against the Airline Pilot. I mean, if you're 2 to 5 and you're getting that kind of trip, I mean, really, he didn't have much of an excuse. He's supposed to be better than those horses, and he wasn't. So I'd probably be against him. I could see maybe a little 1, a little 2. Also, just with the off chance that maybe they get trips. This is the week that they're on. Another race that I think is a spready type race. So I'd be very short early in this sequence. I'd use some spread out in this last race.
And it also tells you who in the Harness Players podcast listens to who, because I was saying Airline Pilot, no day, no night ever going to work for him. And he still went off 2 to 5. I did my work. The listeners didn't, or the viewers did. And that's okay. I've learned to be forgiving. It's the
you got one right for once. I mean,
I really don't know how to feel that confident in anything here because again, I'm talking about
claimers. I mean,
right. Like these are horses that are going to be good on their day. And I want to raise this question with you because I imagine you watched the races too. Did you see how Hort was holding Chuck U. Farley last week? Or do you have a memory of that?
I mean, the problem with this horse is that I do think that he needs everything to go his way. I mean, there's a reason why he was 1 for 25 last year, and he's a couple wins this year, but he got his off the pace kind of flow type trips. So he needs that. He needs racetrack. He needs things to go his way. So I'm not, this horse can pop up and win anytime. I mean,
it was a really weird race, and I encourage anyone watching to go back and watch it too. Because Fraser Downs also, they live stream all of the cards on YouTube, and so you can even go back to past cards and just watch the whole race broadcast on YouTube. But in that race, they're going up to the gate. Chuck U. Farley, he wanted to leave. Hort was having to restrain him to pull him back. Which first thing I was wondering is what happens if this horse leaves? Because very, very clearly it seems like maybe he wanted to. But then I went back and I watched the race with Houdon. Houdon tried to leave with him, and I think this horse just seems like a head case because when Houdon was trying to leave with him, the horse went nope, and then took back. And so the entire mile, Chuck U. Farley looked like he was loaded, but he just kept getting in his own way. And then even turning for home, Howard kind of knew he didn't really have too much left, so he went 3 wide, was wide around the turn. It was a really weird race to watch, but again, like we know that this horse, when he shows up, can be good, and maybe with a clunker like that in the rearview mirror, they maybe make some changes or something different this time around that makes the horse a little easier to handle, maybe a little more focused, even though he is 6 years old, so they might be set in their ways by that point in time, but. All this to say is, like, I'm not opposed to Chuck U. Farley here because I'm not entirely sold on Airline Pilot. I'm not a huge fan of Nothing in Moderation. He just quits way too much when things go right, where I think anyone who has any closing prowess is going to do well, and that includes Major Winker. Even though the post draw isn't as ideal as having the pylon post in his previous start, you look down the page, he's been good and closed ground well against 8 claimers in the past. So this guy very clearly has the ability. The main reason he probably didn't take money is because that was his first start off a layoff. And that wasn't even planned to be his first one. He was supposed to come back in February, scratched sick, and had been off like 5-6 weeks. And so a lot of people have question marks then of why did it take 6 weeks to get this horse back onto the track? So seeing that he was able to win off a perfect trip to me says business as usual. Let's just get back to work. And you might still get an okay price on him in this spot if the Canic Barn takes the betting that they usually do. It's an interesting sequence, all things considered. And as you mentioned, full fields, all but the first leg of the pick 4 are full fields, just 6 going postward in the first leg. I was going to say division, preliminary, whatever. Pick 4 for Friday at Fraser, April 18th. It starts in race number 6. Mike, then your dollar ticket for this pick 4.
So in race 6, I would be heavy 4, use the 2 as a backup. Race 7, key the 5, Loaded Dragon. I think very likely a repeating winner. Race 8, I'd spread out a little. I would use the 1, Buddyville, the 2, whatever, Zalaxa. Oh, I can't remember what you said.
Zillicatson.
Yeah, see, thanks. That's helpful. The 5, Outlaw See My Shadow. I would probably use West Coast Beach also. I think that one I could probably use on this ticket. I would hate to see him win again and from that outside post and not have him. Last race, I'd be the 1, the 2, the 4, the 6 to finish. And that would be $16 on the A ticket. You could throw a couple backups in there also. Hopefully we can get a couple of these prizes in the last 2 legs.
You can thank Murray Slough for that, because when he was on with us, he informed me that it's Zillicatson, not
Thanks, Murray.
Yeah, it's a tribute to Larry Letterman, by the way, of just seeing a name and just going, we're going with all consonants here. My ticket for the pick 4, leg 1, I am Dylan James as an A, and then my B's are the 1, Bay Street Buddy, and the 5, Shots Fired. I'm just writing this down also so I can figure out what the cost is. I'm in agreement with you, though. I don't know how you go against Loaded Dragon in the second. Like, you can if you want. If you have the money and you're like, I'm not going to spend this on a sandwich or anything worthwhile. I'm going to use it to spread against the chalk. Like, you can do whatever you want. It might not be the smartest bet in the world, but Loaded Dragon, I think, is a solid factor in that second leg. Third leg, It'll Be Fine is the A. And then the B's I have as the 1 and 5. Coincidentally, again, I promise that like I'm not phoning this in. It just happens to be the A's are 4s and the B's are 1 and 5s. Then the last leg, I would just be probably 2-6. I'd probably just be against Airline Pilot entirely. He's going to be a short price. I don't think he's a great favorite either. So on the A ticket, that's $2. On the all B ticket, that is $8. And of course, you can intersperse. That's the point of the A's and B's. You play some with A's with some B's with some A's, and they weave together, commingle. It's a real love pageant in some ways. And don't try and think of synonyms for a love pageant, because this is only a TV PG show. 14, all depending on how I'm feeling. Though this concludes our talk for the Fraser Pick 4. Of course, Mike, you mentioned earlier the meet at Fraser starting to slow because during the summer they take some time off, but that means there's still some contest jockey opportunities, right?
Yeah, contest jockeys Thursday nights for Fraser Downs, so check out those contests these next couple weeks on there. And we've been averaging over 300 for those contests, so it's a tough contest to win, but if you're good enough, you can win some free cash on contestjockey.com. So go there and check out the picks on yahoo.picks.com from Doug Henwood, who does a great job. He does the picks for every week for Fraser. And he does his videos also on Twitter. So check Doug out also. Doing a great job for us. We do appreciate him. So thank you to Doug. Maybe we need to get him on one of these last two podcasts.
I was just thinking, I think his time in the sun finally has come. But you can expect then from the In the Money Media Network more Fraser Downs action to come as their 2024-25 meet comes to a close. Of course, we'll have more Borgata action to talk about. You'll see that on the feed. And if you're a Derby aficionado, which, I guess
if you're watching this, you probably are.
Yeah, there's plenty of Kentucky Derby content coming up here on the In the Money Media Network. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, you can always go to YouTube and subscribe to catch some of the video content upcoming. And it's going to be upcoming for, I guess, as long as the sun burns, which is, I think, a few billion years we still have on that. But don't quote me on that. Every day comes and goes. Different things can happen. But we're glad that you came and went here to this episode of the Harness Players Podcast, and hopefully you have good luck betting the Fraser Downs Pick 4 for Friday, April 18th. You enjoy much of the other harness racing content to come here in the year 2025. But I don't have any more time. Mike doesn't have any more time. We have to end this now.